Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this fifth conversation about building community resilience through emergency communications and preparedness. My name is Bea Spadaccini. I'm the manager of the Internews Health Journalism Network, which is a network of health journalists that spans 85 countries, and we have about 1,700 members from around the world. So today we have the opportunity to really take time to think in blue. Think in blue because we're going to be talking about oceans and marine conservation. Let me just share with you a few reminders before we start. If you post anything on social media, please tag us at InternewsHJN. You can also pose questions on the various streaming channels that you're connecting from. We will be monitoring these channels, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter X, and keep track of incoming questions so we can address them in the last 30 minutes of this event. This is a 90-minute event, so we have 4 speakers, 1 featured speakers, and 3 panelists, and then we're going to have opened the floor to the Q&A, questions and answer. So please make sure you post them on the streaming channels, and we'll monitor them. I want to say a few words about today's event. Today's event is part of a project that is, it's called Building Community Resilience Through Emergency Communication and Preparedness in Barbados and Dominica. It's about a 9 months project, and it's a project supported by the the Clara Lionel Foundation. So we want to thank the Clara Lionel Foundation for supporting this project, which has really 3 main objectives. One is to strengthen disaster communication with vulnerable communities. The second objective of this project is to expand the delivery of humanitarian news and reporting. And the third objective is really increasing knowledge and access to the One Health approach. We want to mainstream One Health into everyday conversations. And in this particular objective, we're producing a One Health toolkit for all information providers, journalists, media professionals, but also civil society organizations, emergency responders. And this toolkit is available, and we're building it out 1 chapter at the time. It includes all of the links to these conversations, and it's available on the Health Journalism Network. We can share it. It's going to be on the streaming channels. We can share it, but you can easily find it on our website. Look for One Health Toolkit. So a few words about today's event, Time to Think in Blue. So we know that plastics and disease pathogens, overfishing, and climate change are major threats to marine animal health. Pathogens have the potential to impact marine wildlife, but also have the potential to impact humans and our food supply. Although the oceans and their ecosystem cover most of the planet, and they play a pivotal role in health and welfare and the welfare of humans and animals, there is very little research that has been published on One Health within aquatic ecosystem. For those of you who are new to these conversations, I just want to emphasize that One Health is the intersection between animal health, human health, and environmental health. So we're connecting these different sectors and under the One Health approach. Okay, so this is part of mainstreaming One Health into everyday conversations. Marine reserves are extremely important for safeguarding the health of our seas and oceans. Marine life thrives in these protected areas and provides multiple benefits to people, from food and coastal protection to jobs and even sources of income. We're currently living in the decade of ocean science for sustainable development. This is the decade that we're in, from 2021 to 2030, and it's a United Nations decade that seeks to encourage the development of good science to ensure the conservation of the ocean, the sustainability of its uses, and the protection of ocean health. And today, with a distinguished panel of speakers, we're going to learn about One Health as it applies to marine life, oceans, and coastal communities. So I would like to I have the honor to introduce today's featured speakers. That is Alice Munoz Wilson. And hello, Alex. Welcome to today's conversation. Just a few words about you. And you are where now? Share with us. You're based where now?
I'm in Santiago, Chile. This is my hometown.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us from there. So you are the Senior Director for the Latin America Pristine Seas Initiative of the National Geographic Society that since 2008 seeks to protect the oceans. And in his career, Alex has led campaigns that result in the designation of the largest fully protected marine reserves in Latin America, covering 1.3 million square kilometers of ocean. He has spearheaded important ocean policy changes in Chile, his native country, including a legal ban on shark finning and the prohibition of bottom trawling. He's going to talk to us about this practice on all sea amounts in the Chilean waters. The first transparency obligation on the use of antibiotics by the salmon farming industry, and the halt on the construction of several coal-fired power plants. Alex has also put together the first Latin American Fellowship course on transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption. He was named a Yale World Fellow by Yale University in 2019 and was awarded the McCluskey Fellowship in Conservation by Yale University School of the Environment in 2024. Alex received a law degree from the University of Chile and a master's degree in international and comparative law from Washington University in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for joining us today. And let me also introduce the other speakers before Alex presents. We are joined today also by Fiona Corwin-Pawlowski. Hello, Fiona.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Where are you joining us today from?
Today I'm in New York, but soon we'll be back in Dominica in the Eastern Caribbean, where we do our research at Project CETi, where I'm representing today. So eager to get back to the Caribbean.
To the Caribbean, especially I imagine the weather in New York is pretty cold, chilly. So Fiona, a few words about you. You're the Chief Strategy Officer at Project CETi? How do I say that?
It's CETi. It stands for Cetacean Translation Initiative.
Okay, awesome. And this is a nonprofit organization on a mission to listen and translate the communication of whales. From 2016 to 2022, Fiona has served as a lead in programs at Rihanna's Clara Lionel Foundation, which is the foundation supporting today's event and this project in Dominica and Barbados. During your tenure with the Clara Lionel Foundation, the foundation distributed over 35 million in funding in 2020 alone and received a variety of honors, including selection as one of the Fast Company's 2022 World-Changing Ideas for its Climate Resilience Initiative. With over 20 years of experience building programs and partnership within the social impact space, Fiona is a specialist in structure and strategy for new organizations and initiatives. Fiona currently serves as a subject area expert at Untraditional Philanthropy, which helps donors identify and scale effective nonprofit models, and is a member of the board of directors for Operating Triple Threat, a youth development organization in Barbados. Fiona is committed to storytelling as a tool for social change. And in 2011, she co-founded Project ITSVA, a nonprofit organization that produced photography and youth development workshops across Haiti. So then next, we also have today joining us Dr. Patrick McConney.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Patrick. Where are you joining us today from?
I'm in beautiful Barbados.
I envy you. So Patrick is a senior lecturer in marine resources management planning at the Center for Resource Management and Environmental Studies, CERMIS, the University of the West Indies in Barbados. His work covers aspects of small-scale fisheries, such as governance, livelihood, socioeconomic, gender, and adaptive capacity in the context of resilient social economical systems. Today, we also have joining us another speaker. In fact, I want to say a few words before I introduce the other speaker. We were supposed to be joined by Dr. Yawson, David Yawson, also from the Center for Resource Management and Environmental Studies, CERMIS, in Barbados. But unfortunately, Dr. Yawson is ill, and we wish him a speedy recovery. So he has suggested two other speakers, Dr. Patrick, that we've just introduced, and Dr. Kent Thomas. Kent Thomas.
Hello.
Hello, Kent. How are you today, and where are you joining us from?
I'm good. I'm in Barbados also.
Oh, lucky you and Dr. Patrick Conway. I wish I could be there. Let me say a few words about you, Kent. You are from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and you have a Master of Philosophy. You're a Master of Philosophy student at the University of the West Indies. And you're also affiliated to the Center for Resource Management and Environmental Studies in Barbados. Your research? Hi, I see you. That's great. Thank you. Your research is based on linking geomorphology to soil erosion in watersheds on the Eastern Caribbean states. You hold a Master of Science degree in Real Estate from the University College of Estate Management in the UK. You also have a Master of Science in Project Management from La Universidad para la Cooperación Internacional of Costa Rica. And you have a Bachelor in Civil Engineering from Tamkang University in Taiwan. So quite a different background and a comprehensive background. You have nearly a decade of experience in research of soil and water conservation, and you're a practicing civil engineer. And you have contributed to land degradation analysis in Taiwan, and currently you're also a consultant on the Water Resilience Project in Barbados. And my understanding is that you hope to transfer your knowledge to the Caribbean and the Latin American region. And you are passionate about helping communities recognize their interesting vulnerabilities and about empowering vulnerable communities to be more climate resilient. So thank you so much. Why don't we welcome our speakers again today? And maybe we dive right into a presentation by Alex Munoz, who will introduce us to the Pristine Seas initiative of the National Geographic Society and tell us why we need more marine reserves and how can we create marine reserves. Alex, the floor is yours for about 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm aware that you will alert my colleagues when to stop the video. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Bea, for that very comprehensive introduction. I'm very honored to be sharing this time with you and with all the panelists, especially the ones in the Caribbean and in New York. Yes, I work for National Geographic and this project called Pristine Seas. And as you said, what we do is help protect the ocean by working with different partners, either governments, local communities, indigenous peoples, to create marine reserves. And I'll tell you why we need more marine reserves. If you can play the video just for a second, we will see the first slide here. There you go. When people ask me sorry, can we go back a little bit to the the next slide, please. When people ask me what's a pristine seas, what does a pristine sea look like? I always think about a watch. If you think about this watch that has different gears, so like a small, big, medium size, and they're all fit together perfectly as one machine that gives the exact time. It's a very functional watch. Its mission is to give the exact time. If you change one of the gears, let's say you remove one of these round gears, or even if you add one that shouldn't be there, that watch will be broken, will be different, will not give the exact time anymore. It would not be functional. The same thing happens with the marine ecosystem. If you go to the next slide, please, you will see that a pristine sea looks like this. This is a photograph of Mexico, the Revillagigedo Islands, a place that we had the honor to visit a few years ago and explore it. And you can see all the right pieces of a healthy environment. You see the big fish like sharks. You have the medium-sized fish that are basically the food for the sharks. You see algae, you see a little bit of coral cover. All of those are the same gears of a perfectly functional watch. This is a functional ecosystem. It's not that it's completely pure, deprived from any kind of particle. It's just an ecosystem that has all the pieces of a healthy environment. Here you can see this kelp forest. Please, you can play the video. This is another example of Chile. It's a place that has all the right pieces of a healthy food chain. All the layers are in balance. So there's a lot of food, there's a lot of predators, so the system can keep developing in a very balanced way. If you remove any of those, then the next layer of the ecosystem will be overdeveloped, and then that overdeveloped layer would predate over the next layer, and that would create a complete imbalance. So that's why we want to protect these places that are still out there. There are still a few places that are still pristine, and we want to protect them before it's too late. So we can keep going with the video. This is just an example of things that I wanted to show, because this is us basically exploring these amazing places in the south of Chile. In this case, very cold water, but amazingly productive. The kelp forests are the architecture for hundreds of species, and also an amazing carbon sink. That's why kelp forests need to be protected. In some cases, we have aggregations of crabs that are incredibly high, and this was an amazing view that we had in Cape Horn. Imagine how far we were diving in this very remote place, but we found thousands of those. Can we stop the video, please? Thousands of crabs. Unfortunately, right by those places, we have activities like this one. In this case, this is a bottom trawler. This is a way, one of the most destructive, not only fishing, but actually human activities in the world. Since the 1950s, industrial fishing started developing in a more sophisticated way, and us humans found a way to fish more and more with a lot of technology, so we can fish as much as we can. Of course, fish are a renewable resource as long as we respect certain thresholds, as long as we respect the ability of the ocean to recover itself. But we are overfishing the ocean, and this is a terrible method that we have been using all over the world. That means that this boat throws this big net to the bottom of the ocean with some heavy weight, and drags the nets along the seafloor, not only catching the fish, but also destroying all the habitat of that fish. Please continue with the video. Some bottom trawling nets are so big that they can fit 13 of those big planes. Here's a photograph of how it looks after it's been trawled and before it's trawled. You can see the difference, how there's nothing there. There's a desert there, um, after it's being trolled, and that means that the fish now they don't have the habitat, they don't have the place where they can hide, they can feed themselves, where they can reproduce, where they can grow, and that's why after we troll a place, there's significant reduction in the productivity of those fisheries. Next one, please. This is a coral that must be 1,000 years old that was found in one of the trolling nets in the south of Chile. And also our studies have shown that bottom trawling not only harms the seafloor, but actually it releases carbon. It's like it has a certain impact on climate change, because a lot of the CO2 that is in the atmosphere, it's absorbed by the ocean, and it sinks and it goes directly to the seafloor. So when you drag this heavy net, you're also removing all the sediments, and it releases the CO2 that was inside this sediment. So that's why bottom trawling has an incredibly high impact, a negative impact on climate, because it releases a lot of CO2 that should be trapped there. Next one, please. Another other problems that we see very commonly, especially in places where there are sea turtles populations, is that they're in the way of long liners. Long liners are big vessels that throw a line with thousands and thousands of hooks, usually to fish tuna or a swordfish. But sea turtles get in the way, of course, and they are trapped, and there are thousands of sea turtles that die every year because of that. The next one, please. This is a very shocking photograph of dolphins that were trapped in a fishing net. Stop. Can we stop there, please? It's one of the common denominators of modern fishing is that the fishing gear are not selective. They fish certain amounts of the fish that it's been targeted, but also there's a large amount of marine life that dies involuntarily just because they are not careful enough to target a certain species, because it's too valuable. There's a lot of money involved in this industry, and that's why basically they don't care about killing other sea life. That's what we call the bycatch. The bycatch is the incidental catch of marine life that dies or it's severely hurt by these fishing methods that are not non-selective. And I just want to also show this big net, which is anchoveta in Peru, that kind of gives you a very good idea of the scale of fishing, how much we're taking out of the ocean. And it's incredible that we're doing this. And this is not even for humans. These fisheries that are called forage fish, anchovies, sardines, are mainly used for fish meal and fish oil to feed other animals, not even humans. And these are very rich fish. They have an amazing amount of they can deliver an amazing amount of protein, and also like a very healthy oils. And we can feed the world if we had healthy fisheries like this one. Unfortunately, more than half of the fisheries around the world are overfished, and some of them are even collapsed. They're not coming back. They were overfished to a point that it's very unlikely that they will recover. Okay, next slide, please. One thing, this is a tip for reporters that, can we go to the previous one, please? want to show you this drawing because we think that we know how much is being fished by looking at statistics, but the fact is that 1/3 of the catch is completely dark. We receive official numbers, but if you start digging in the information, you will find out that there's a lot of unreported catch, and this is a problem because it's very hard to manage an activity like this one without knowing what is exactly happening. The ocean is so big that it's a source for illegal fishing, unreported fishing too, and that makes us believe that the problems are actually worse than we think. Next one, please. And to make things even more challenging, we have the problem of climate change. Because of climate change, the ocean is experimenting two different phenomena. One of them is the increase in the ocean temperature, and the other one is that the oceans are becoming more acidic. Because of those two things, there are certain species like corals that are disappearing. They're bleaching, and some scientists believe that in 2050 there will be no coral reefs left in the world. It's that serious. It's that bad, and that's why we need to increase the efforts to control climate change. Next one, please. So what can we do about this? There are different. Can we go to the previous one, please? Thank you. What can we do about this? There are, of course, different views, and different people have different solutions. The one that we believe that is the most effective because it has different benefits are marine protected areas. Marine protected areas are places, delimited places in the ocean where extractive activities are banned or highly restricted. In this case, if you see that photograph, that's the kind of place that need to be protected because it has so much to give to the world. Those kelp that look so simple in a way, they are the habitat for hundreds of species. Some of those species are the food for communities around the world. They are also a carbon sink. They're absorbing a lot of CO2, so they're helping us. They're our best ally to combat climate change. Sometimes kelp forests can absorb more CO2 than rainforest. They have an amazing capacity to absorb that. And also, there are a lot of people that live from this habitat because it's producing a lot of jobs. Can we go to the next one, please? Okay. I don't know if it's showing. Okay. As I was saying, a marine protected area would help us protect biodiversity. The biodiversity that is giving us all kinds of services. Can we stop in the previous one, please? Exactly. It will help us mitigate climate change, and also the studies have shown that when a place is effectively protected, a place in the ocean is effectively protected, the ecosystem becomes more resilient to climate change. So we will have a better chance to adapt and survive the impacts of climate change. And also will increase productivity. If you go to the next one, the next slide, we will understand this better. When fish are let alone and not fish, they collaborate very much because they reproduce, they grow, they develop, and the populations start increasing. The abundance in a protected area is way higher than compared to an unprotected place. So when the fish leave the area that is protected, then the fishing sector will also be benefited because they can fish more than before the establishment of an MPA. That's what we call the spillover effect. Next one, please. I want to show you this one exactly. And this is important because there are different kinds of marine protected areas depending on the level of protection. And because marine protected area is a generic concept, the ones that we like are fully protected or highly protected because they have way more benefits than the ones that are very softly protected. What we want is to recover the ocean of the past, right? The ocean of the past that was full of life. At present, the oceans are depleted, but with marine protected areas, we have a chance to recover these ecosystems so that all these big fish, the sharks, the tuna can come back, the little fish too, the algae, etc. So the more we protect, the more and the quicker we'll have results. Many countries don't have, I would say, enough leadership to do that because it requires a lot of strength and leadership to do that. And we'll see that some of the countries have been great at doing it. Some other countries are just minimally protecting these places with very little difference between those, I would say, multiple use marine reserves and unprotected places. So that's why this graphic is so important, to show that not all marine protected areas are the same. Some of them are pretty much useless. Some of them are very useful, depending on the level of protection. Next one, please. So I want to go into now very quickly. What we do is combine science, exploration, policy, economy, and of course, work with the local communities. And I want to remark something, that ocean protection and the establishment of marine protected areas is a collective effort. It's essentially a collective effort that implies the collaboration of a lot of actors between scientists, NGOs, governments, local communities, indigenous peoples. All of them are important, and we have to work together. And our job is mainly to invite everybody to the table so we can work together towards an ambitious solution. Next one, please. But first, we have to have our facts clear, and that's why we use a lot of science methods, including diving in the first in the shallower waters between 0 and 40 meters, but we also have tech diving. We have remote cameras and even a submersible submarine that now can go 400 meters deep, which is an amazing tool to explore the ocean. And we have deep sea cameras that can go very deep, even 8,000 meters deep, so we can see what creatures are way down there. Next one, please. The pelagic cameras are incredibly useful. These are cameras that are drifting in the ocean, and then we recover them using a radio signal. Next one, please. I want people to see what kind of image we can capture with this. This is a video that we made in the Juan Fernandez Islands in Chile, a very remote place, the Robinson Crusoe Island. And they had never seen sharks. It was very difficult for them to see sharks and for us to film them. So what we did is to use these remote cameras that has this little tube with a bait. And for the first time, we were able to see these sharks like this in their natural habitat. These are blue sharks, and also there's some mako shark that were in camera. And this is an amazing tool because we can not only see them, but we can study them, because we can estimate the length, the sex of the animal, and all kinds of information that we can get from the use of these pelagic cameras. Let's go to the next one because I wanna leave time to discuss. That's a mako shark. Can we forward a little bit? Okay, great. And the drop cams, I was saying, is this round machine that it was invented in the National Geographic labs that also has been an amazing tool to see what nobody has seen before, like creatures that live very deep in the ocean. Sometimes we have discovered new species to science, and we have been traveling with them all the time because the seafloor is the most unknown area of the ocean. We know more of the moon. Sometimes we know more about Mars instead of exploring and knowing more from the ocean. So this is an incredible contribution, I think, to science that we have been making around the world. Next one, please. Yeah, I just want to show you the submarine. We can keep going now because I just want to show you that this is the submersible that we use. It's an amazing tool. We can fit 3 people, two people on up front and a pilot behind, and it has a 360-degree view. You can see up, down, front, below, behind. And in here we're in the Revillagigedo Islands that has this amazing mantas that are huge, around 5 meters long. And this manta was playing with us. It was like going back and around all the time. And then we noticed that it was playing with our bubbles. So it was like a jacuzzi in a way for the mantas. We use the critter cams too. We use this on whales and also on this case on the mantas. And this is the actual manta we're holding the camera. It's the manta filming another manta that has this camera attached to the back. So it's incredible. It's like a knowing the exact the wild behavior of these animals. This is just an animal filming another animal. It's incredible.
That's amazing, Alex. It's just I could watch this forever. I just have to remind you of the time frame, but please, I'm sure everyone is super interested.
I wanna start wrapping up. I mean, I cannot go faster because I need somebody to forward this. So please, can we start going a little bit faster, please?
Yes, I think my colleague Graciela is going to fast forward, but I feel like you have an amazing job, and to see these animals like that is so magical, and it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and we've done this with whales too. It's incredible. There's no way a diver could have done this. Like it's a different tool. I mean, it's the combination of these tools that give us a better picture of the status and the health of an ecosystem.
Well, Graciela, fast forward. The pelagic camera that you were talking about, is that kind of like a satellite in the universe that you leave there?
No,
and
it's an actual camera fixed with a pole and with a buoy, so it floats and it remains at 5 meters deep. That's why it's always on a shallow water. So all the fish, like sharks that are swimming in the surface, they will be caught by this camera. Just want to wrap up. Of course, we do a lot of other things like shark tagging. We can skip this, but I want to just finish with the more like a policy aspects of this. We work with governments and local communities. For us, it's very important to work with both together so we can interpret. We can give the locals the platform so they can ask for what they want in terms of their vision and cosmovision, in this case, indigenous peoples or local communities. And we want to make sure that if there's a marine reserve to be proposed, it's led by them. And then we work with the governments to somehow take this proposal that has this cultural vision that is well based on science, and we work then with the presidents or ministers or members of Congress of a country, so those reserves are finally designated. That's the way we do. That's the way, especially, that I like to work, because it's very important to be respectful of what the local communities and indigenous peoples want. They have been there for centuries and sometimes thousands of years, like the Kawascar people in the south of Chile that we've been working with. It's very important to work with them, understand what they want, listening to them, and only then work with the governments so the governments can designate these reserves in a legal manner. In this case, the last great experience that we had was in Dominica. How you were seeing just a photograph of this sperm whale, because Dominica was visionary in creating the first marine reserve for sperm whales in the world. And we're so happy about that, because it was a joint collaboration between different actors, including CETi, that is very well represented here, and Pristine Seas, and the Dominican, the government of Dominica, and also tourism operators. And the way we understood this project was that a whale sanctuary would serve different purposes: protecting the biodiversity, protecting the whales, serving the local economy, and also helping with climate change. So that was the best combination in one single project. This far, I don't know if we're starting the video again, Graciela, but anyway, I want to say that in the past 14 years, we have been able to help create 14 big marine reserves in Latin America, accounting for 1.3 million square kilometers of ocean that are fully protected. When I mean fully protected, that means that there's no fishing, no deep sea mining, no extractive activities, but there's tourism. In some cases, there are indigenous fishing too on a very small scale. So that for us has been our contribution, and I just want to thank all the partners that we've had. CETi has been one of them, but we have been working with many partners from local communities, from the indigenous peoples, from NGOs, scientists, and also governments that have had the leadership to create these reserves that only a few years ago were very resisted, but today seems to be a great solution to the problems that the humanity is facing, like climate change, overfishing, lack of food, and others that are challenging our existence. Well, thank you so much, Bea. I want to leave it there, and I want to be able to chat with our panelists and have an interesting conversation.
Thank you so much, Alex. It was fascinating. I've learned so much in just a few minutes. So let's bring on the other panelists, and perhaps maybe we could start with, since you mentioned CETi and Fiona is with us today, perhaps I'm wondering whether, after we've all watched this presentation that Alex made and we heard him speak, what has resonated, Fiona, with you the most from his presentation, and also that you carry into your everyday work at CETi?
Thank you so much. And Alex, just a stunning presentation, and just so grateful to be here with all the panelists. You all are doing such incredible work in the Caribbean and beyond, but especially special to be here with Alex, because as we both have mentioned, Pristine Seas is an amazing partner to CETi. We actually work with National Geographic overall. We're partners across all the pillars of work in the society. So just really special to see this presentation, and especially see Dominica mentioned. I think the key things that Alex talked about that really stood out to me were, first, just really appreciate the centering of local communities and listening. You know, CETi is a listening project. we are about listening to the sperm whale in Dominica in particular, but we view ourselves as a listening project that, really begs the question. We're asking the question, can technology bring us closer to nature? And how can understanding another species fully for the first time really continue the legacy of the conservation movements of our time, like the Save the Whales movement that really led to policy, and like the Marine Mammal Protection Act? How can we carry on that legacy for a new age? And I think the core piece, and we thought about this a lot at Clara Lionel Foundation when creating the Climate Resilience Initiative, is just that universal truth of we are all best positioned to know what's needed and wanted in our own communities. As Alex mentioned, Dominica's people, civil society, and government have an incredible vision to be the first climate resilient nation in the world. They are called the Nature Island for a reason. It's an incredibly rich ecosystem that deserves to be protected. And there's just such incredible leaders on the ground doing that work every single day. And it's a privilege for those of us that are able to partner with them, as Alex mentioned, to just simply offer a platform and ask how we can support. I think asking that question, listening, centering that local leadership wherever you may work in the world is key. So that was the first thing that really stood out to me. And secondly, really appreciate Pristine Seas, connecting technology to policy and taking that really 360 approach of thinking about ecosystems, not just one place or one species. We try to bring that into our work with CETi as well.
Thank you so much, Fiona. I'm sorry, my camera is off. Thank you for that, those insight, and especially the listening project. Here at Internews, we also pride ourselves in listening to the communities and to what communities need. It's such an important point. Let's bring on Dr. Patrick McConney and see perhaps what he can share with us about Alex's presentation, what resonated with you most, and what makes sense in your everyday activities.
Thanks a lot. Good to join my companions, whether you are online, anywhere in the world, and of course, those on the event with me. That was a really great presentation from Alex. We have a few things in common. For example, for National Geographic, we have a shared passion for use of underwater drones and technology for a lot of the applied research and science that we do. That was some really good footage that we saw. And of course, we know of our colleagues from CETi in Dominica, the Nature Isle, where we have very active engagement with colleagues and alumni, because I must mention that UWI is a regional university. We're not only in Barbados, but in several other Caribbean countries, with a very vigorous network of alumni in all places, including in the marine agencies. And perhaps in that context, I can broaden our conversation with three very short stories to illustrate the type of work we do in UWI, and to connect to Dominique and so forth. So the three very brief areas that I will touch on concern, well, let us ask how much nature is too much nature? And I'm just going to explain a little bit about our work with sargassum seaweed, which is an issue for Dominica, Barbados, and all of the Caribbean. And I'm going to ask also, what about wild weather? Because certainly we know of Dominica and the impacts of Hurricane Maria. We know of other hurricanes and rough sea events and storms in the Caribbean. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're using technology, not undersea, but above water in terms of smartphone apps to deal with coastal communities and fishers. And finally, we need to ask, where's the food coming from? And we can talk about blue food and food from the sea, which is really important as we're addressing climate change and variability in the Caribbean. So in a couple of minutes, you're going to have a whirlwind tour of some of the diverse research that we do in the University of the West Indies. But let's start with sargassum. I'm hoping that some folks are aware of the issue of sargassum seaweed, which is millions of tons of brown floating marine algae that come across the Atlantic Ocean and impact the Caribbean from Barbados in the far east to Mexico in the far west. And it is a natural phenomenon, but it is aggravated by climate change and variability, as well as human impacts. And the connection, because we would want to make a One Health connection to human health and well being, to the environment, as well as to community resilience. And that connection is that, along with many other agencies and international partners, we are looking at the forecasting of sargassum, the impacts of sargassum, including those on human health, which have to do with respiratory ailments. There's a possible threat to reproductive health in women. And of course, there are impacts that affect entire communities when fisheries and tourism and recreation and just the quality of life is impacted by this seaweed that can also smother reefs. Those amazing pictures that Alex showed of live reefs that are with high biodiversity. If there's too much sargassum, which is an asset in small quantities, reefs and beaches, coastal wetlands are also under threat. So that's an area I think that is well worthy of attention in terms of the links between health, environment, and community resilience as we work with communities across the Caribbean. Another area is that of what do you do for early warning systems and emergency response when you have these extreme weather events that are affecting the Caribbean increasingly. And for that, colleagues at UWI, including CERMES, developed smartphone applications for fishers and their families to use, along with the response agencies to deal with rough sea events, because we may know that weather effects on the sea when you're in the open ocean fishing may feel very different to when you're on land and perhaps only worried about the wind and the rain. But at sea, rough sea events in small vessels can be extremely terrifying. And it's a problem with climate change and variability. So UWI, working very closely with people in coastal communities to improve their resilience, developed a suite of smartphone apps so that folks can carry monitoring and evaluation techniques to sea with them and have advance warning of weather impacts that could affect their livelihoods and indeed their lives at sea, and connect to their families on shore and to the agencies, the emergency response agencies, Red Cross. So that's an area in which we are connecting, again, environment and health to community well-being and resilience. The third, in the interest of time, that I'm just going to really introduce is the area of blue food. It's one of those topics being discussed right now at COP28 in terms of how are we dealing with the need to improve food security and food sovereignty from the ocean. And of course, being full of small island developing states in the Caribbean Sea, it is a major concern. And in that respect, we are working with, again, many partners in communities and other agencies to look at sustainable fishing practices. But not only fishing, throughout the value chain, we're looking at processing, we're looking at marketing, we're looking at distribution, and we're looking at mariculture. That is cultivating not only fish, but seaweeds, other biodiversity in controlled environments for human well-being, but in a sustainable way in which nature is not unduly harmed, because we know the horror stories of eutrophication, that is a lot of nutrients going into the sea, and medications that impact the biology of the species that we would wish to consume as food for ourselves. And in this respect, we're also thinking that young people will be more attracted to marine enterprises and livelihoods by employing some of the technology that I've mentioned, and also, of course, the great assets that Alex showcased in terms of how we can make what we do more meaningful for those in Caribbean communities. So that's a little snippet of what we do here at CERMES and with colleagues throughout the University of the West Indies and in the Caribbean and around the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. McConney. This was really, really interesting. And I heard a couple of things from you, this sargassum seaweed issue and how important that is and the spread of it, how much nature is too much nature. It's a powerful question. And also you spoke about, again, the smartphone applications. And I remember that Fiona also talked about, can technology bring us closer to nature? These are useful food for thoughts, really. Let's bring on Kent Thomas. And Kent, maybe if you can share with us some of the reflections you've had as you were listening to Alex and how
One of the areas, one of the areas that was very interesting on Alex's presentation is when he said that not all MPAs are the same. And it is in this way that while I am not directly a marine resources researcher, I am a land-based land management researcher. And in my area of expertise, not all watersheds are the same. And what I do is I work on the Eastern Caribbean wide soil erosion hotspot delineation. I look at how we can, using watersheds and trying to create groups of watersheds that are similar throughout the Caribbean islands by their shape, by their form, by their geomorphology. How can we transfer soil erosion interventions from UNEP, UNDP, and other FAO from one country to another? And increasing the baseline quantitative data so that when we are targeting soil erosion interventions, we can say this nature-based solution worked in Barbados, and because Antigua is another cast limestone country, how could we transfer a project that worked there into another country? Now, while this is not directly based on marine resources, soil erosion is one of the, oh, sorry, I forgot to say, happy International World Soil Day, December 5th. One of the effects of soil erosion is that we have, as Dr. McConney said, eutrophication, that's nutrient runoff from land-based sources. We have
marine protection,
industrial discharge, industrial pollutants going right into the sea, because every watershed, every area has to have an outlet. And so, as you can see from my background has a lot of different, well, this is a specific event. I think it was Tropical Storm Matthew, where everywhere across St. Vincent was covered in sediments. And when the next rainfall comes, where do these sediments go? Right into the sea. In that event, there was actually an area where in Rabaca Dry River, where there was so much sediment, it pushed back the sea by nearly half a mile. Now, how does this affect marine resources? Is that you would have the aggradation, which is the pushback in one area, and it will force other areas, the processes in the beach side to actually change, so that coastal erosion will change from the processes would be aggradation pushing out, and it would be pulling back in, and degradation in other areas, which basically enhances soil erosion. Now, in it all, it is about integrating marine and integrating land so that we can understand how we are creating a source to sea plan to increase our resilience across the region, increase our religion, our resilience, increase our resilience from different aspects of it. And this is one of the great focuses of SOMI is how could we not only just look at climate change, but look at marine resources, land resources, water resources, which is on land resources, and how could we actually integrate them together and create solutions that works for everyone and works for throughout the region.
Thank you so much, Kent. Very interesting use, and thank you for reminding us that today's World Soil Day and helping us see the connection between what happens on the soil and how that impacts water systems and the oceans and waterways with eutrophication and also the sediments because of soil erosion and what that does to water systems in general. The link with One Health, in particular environmental health and animal health through your presentation was definitely very clear. So I want to go back to Alex and maybe, I know, ask a few questions, see if there's any questions coming in. I'm not sure if my colleagues, I just want to remind my colleagues, if there's any questions coming in from the audience, please put them on the screen or in the chat so I can see them and share them with our listeners and with the audience. And Alex, I know you spoke a little bit about just the protected marine areas quite a bit, and the importance of preserving marine areas and protecting them. I know we have one. I'm in Italy. I'm the only one who didn't share my location, but I'm in Italy. We have a few in the Adriatic coast as well. And I'm wondering, for example, when it comes next year, 2024, is the deadline for nations signing a legally binding international agreement on managing plastic pollution. And I'm wondering, why is this treaty important from your perspective as you dive into the oceans, go into many parts of the world to protect marine areas and ecosystems, marine ecosystems? This plastic, how does that, for example, affect our seas and our oceans?
Well, the truth is that we are facing very severe and different crises all at the same time. We are suffering from climate change. We are suffering from the loss of biodiversity. And we are also facing the crisis of plastic pollution. And those three are global problems, and they deserve global solutions. The plastic treaty that the international community is negotiating is very important, so we can start at least closing the faucet, closing or reducing the amount of garbage, plastic garbage that we're dumping into the environment. The bad news is that in the case of plastics and also in the case of CO2 emissions, we haven't even peaked yet. We are still increasing the amount of plastic that we're dumping into the environment and then to the ocean. Some of them come from rivers, like of course people are dumping plastic everywhere, in some cases in the rivers, and then it gets to the ocean and so on. There are many ways the plastic get into the ocean, and then when in the ocean, the plastic start drifting. So there are some of them can travel very, very long distances, and it may affect communities in places where the plastics, very far away from where the plastics were initially thrown or dumped. Hopefully we will achieve something meaningful. One of the problems with international agreements is that although there are major step forward, usually because of the rule of decision making that requires unanimous vote, in some cases the solutions are disappointing, or the agreements are disappointing. If you see the example of climate change, every year we're disappointed by the outcome of these COPs, the Conference of the Parties, that because of the opposition of certain countries, a few countries, the agreements get diluted. And that's my concerns, that we can reach an agreement on plastics, but if certain corporate interests lobby too much, we may have a weak agreement. So it's not just about the agreement itself, it's about the level of ambition. So that would be my concern. Hopefully we arrive to something meaningful, and we stop using such an amount of plastic, and come up with technology that allow us to use some other materials.
Yeah, and when you talked about the carbon sink and the marine protected areas and how they can really be a solution as well when it comes to mitigating the impact of climate change. Are you aware of what's happening at COP now and maybe in this area, and whether there's efforts to really position marine protected areas? And I'm also curious if there's as many protected areas in other parts of the world. It sounds like in Latin America, there's quite a few. Which part of the world has the most, and what is the gap? Yeah.
Yes. Well, there are many issues here. First, we have a very particular COP on climate change, which is being held in the United Emirates, and which is an oil-producing country, right? So there has been some controversy over the presidency of that climate change COP because of the conflict of interest between the president that manages it. I mean, he's the CEO of the largest public oil company in the United Emirates, and he is also in charge of the conference that is supposed to reduce the consumption of oil or fossil fuels. So that has been quite distracting in a way. Second point is that the oceans has become an important topic in the climate negotiations, because the ocean is a big ally. When the ocean is in good shape, it has an enormous capacity to absorb CO2 and helping us with the solution to climate change. Today, 1/3 of the CO2 emissions are being absorbed by the ocean, and also it helps us to keep the temperature somehow lower than it should be without the ocean. So we need to make sure that the ocean keeps that capacity. What is happening is that as we remove too much life from the ocean doesn't have that capacity. The kelp forests that we just saw that are around the world, but they are dying because of the increase of the temperature, they have an incredible capacity to sequestrate, to absorb CO2, and then they sink and they keep it down there in the ocean forever. The same with whales. Whales have play an enormous role in keeping that CO2 on the seafloor. So as we protect places with marine reserves, we'll have first a more effective tool to mitigate climate change. That means absorbing that, but also the ecosystems become better prepared to resist, to adapt to climate change. That has been shown by studies. So although we cannot stop certain things, if we have a healthy ocean full of life, that ocean will resist better. One example is the Southern Islands, which is a place that we have been visiting for the past 15 years. And we saw bleaching events like El Nino a year, killing all the corals. But because it was a healthy environment and it was very well protected, the corals came back and they are healthy now, which is an incredibly good news. If we protect those places, they can come back better and quicker. So that's why we believe marine reserves are part of the solution to adaptation as well.
Thank you so much, Alex. maybe bringing, since you spoke about whales, and I know there's some of our listeners really interested in the work of CETi with listening to the communication of whales, and you said that whales also have a role to play in mitigating the impact of climate change. Maybe Fiona, could you share with us how this happens and what are you learning from listening to the whales?
Absolutely, thank you. And just really appreciate everyone's comments. So just to offer some context for CETi, we are a interdisciplinary scientific initiative, research initiative that spans 15 institutions ranging from Berkeley to Harvard to MIT. And our team of scientists is about 50 now and spans 9 countries. Now, I say this all to really lift up the idea of what does it look like to do international work on this scale, but have a localized approach. So we have a full-time field team in Dominica. You can see several of our team members here in this photo on the boat. We are developing what we call gentle robotics. Our head of robotics, Robert Wood, and our founder, David Gruber, have a strong track record creating the most gentle robots in the world. They actually designed a robot that can study a jellyfish with less than 1/10 of the pressure that our eyelid hits our eye. So if you could stay on this slide for just a moment, I'd love to explain a little of the ecosystem of how are we listening and translating whale communication. Is there any way to pause the video and just show the ecosystem slide again? Yes, this one, perfect. So you could see here just a little of this is the how. So you can see in this illustration, you'll see our buoys, which are floating on top of the water. They have a long microphone that goes down into the depths and can be listening at all times. Again, this is completely non-invasive. It just exists in the ocean, similar to the drop cams that Alex described that National Geographic uses. And just to mention, we're actually going to be bringing the drop cams on another mission to Dominica in the new year, which we're really excited to work on National Geographic with that. You can see that we have drones here that are offering visual and sound, and also we're going to be doing some tagging via drones. Tags are a tool that have been used in marine biology, especially to study whales and other larger marine mammals for decades. We have tried to take the technology light years, and we've made bio-inspired tags. So our tags are the lightest tags you can have, and they're inspired by suction in nature, like how a fish would suction onto whales, or how a gecko uses their pads on their feet to. And here's where I'm showing my non-science. I don't know if I'm supposed to be calling them feet, but they're just how they can grip different surfaces. So all that to say, just to bring it back to One Health and the Internews approach, which I love this framework because I think it takes us out of this idea of silos. And, I think the through line through the comments today is this is intersectional. The challenges we're facing are vast. We need everyone, we need every discipline, we need us working together. But most importantly, I believe that the localized approach is so critical, right? This is why we approach the work how we do in Dominica. In addition to our field team, I also want to pick up on the thread of young people. We have a fellowship program for young Dominicans interested in marine science. We have 4 incredible fellows now in our second cohort. They, through the program that we co-created with National Geographic, it's a custom curriculum that spans 10 months. They are a part of our research. The cohorts go through professional development and leadership training. We have an amazing program manager, Makita Warner, that manages that program. And we also, in addition to this apparatus here that you see how we're listening to the whales, we also link it to conservation and ecosystems protection in the region through work with National Geographic. We just collaborated with the Pristine Seas team actually as well on a Macuba Banks survey, which is an area of the island that the Dominican government wants to make into a new MPA. And of course, the Sperm Whale Reserve, which was just announced, our head of biology, Shane Giro, was an advisor on that process. We were grateful to work with Pristine Seas on that as well. So, I think part of this conversation is also a lot of what Alex was just speaking about with COP. It comes up a lot, like, how can the ocean, how can whales, how can everyone help us, help humans, right? And I think what's beautiful about the One Health approach is how do we take it beyond just how can nature serve us and help us kind of correct our behavior and really bring it back to this One Health framework, which I think is really about culture change, perspective change. How are we viewing ourselves as part of nature, not separate? And how can we actually put these protections in place and all work towards these goals with the idea of, you know, what One Health is all about, which is one interconnected ecosystem between humans and other species and the earth. And that is what, at the heart of it, our mission is about. CETi is just one way, but we are hopeful to offer not just a model of how to, you know, really dig deep and work in one place on one species, but with this crazy team that spans all of these institutions. But how do we work towards just an offering of remembering the just how incredible nature is, these animals and the earth, and how can we use these incredible technologies that we now have access to bring us closer, to understand more and ask the right questions, not just to figure out how can we use parts of nature to solve for things like carbon or things that we really have to figure out how to actually change our behavior, right? So that's really just a little more of how we do things, but also what is our vision for how this would affect the world and contribute to what Internews has named the One Health framework. And I'll just close by saying yesterday was Wildlife Conservation Day, and we had a privilege to interview an incredible ecologist and Nat Geo explorer, actually, Janelle Brisbane. And she just said something that resonated with me so much. She said, you know, species have no borders. And when we asked her what she thought the greatest challenge was facing both Dominica and the world around conservation, she said it's our disconnection. And, you know, she is a coordinator of the Caribbean hub of Nat Geo explorers in the region. And she really was speaking to what the other speakers have spoken to today, which is the importance of reaching across borders, across islands, across regions, and sharing best practices and elevating each other and really conserving species, having projects like all of the incredible work that's being done by my co-panelists be truly integrated and collaborative. So that's what we hope to offer with CETi as well, is that approach.
Thank you. And since I know you may have to leave a little bit earlier, and I do have a question that came in for you specifically, I'm going to ask this question from a speaker, from a listener, I apologize. What would happen to Dominica's coastal areas if sperm whales were not protected and conserved? How does their well-being positively impact the island? Thank you.
That's such a beautiful question, and I also would love Alex's thoughts on this, as Pristine Seas really spearheaded this reserve process, again with our head of biology, Shane Giro. I recommend following both Pristine Seas and Shane to learn more about the whales specifically and these efforts. But I would say that, you know, the sperm whales are part of, you know, an incredible ecosystem in Dominica. They eat squid, which is also just an amazing thing that isn't thought about a lot. I mean, there's the iconic relationship between the squid and the whale that we've all heard about in pop culture. But part of the reason that the whales are there in Dominica is that there are squid to eat. There is space for them to be in these ecosystems. So it's important to keep the ecosystems healthy, to keep not just the whales there, but all species there, to protect the rich areas around Dominica. A huge reason to protect the whales. And what would happen if the whales and other species weren't there? I mean, as mentioned before, Dominica is a nature island. There's so many species, and so on both land and in the ocean, that are unique to Dominica, that are unique to the Caribbean. If we don't protect whales and other marine creatures and other terrestrial animals as well, we will lose some of these species, and that is incredibly damaging to the ecosystems that are there, and the long-term health of the island and the coastal areas as well.
Thank you so much. Alex, do you want to say anything about this particular question about the sperm whale?
No. just second Fiona, and she gave the perfect answer. I don't have anything to add except that it's completely beneficial from so many points of view to protect species like these whales. They are great for the ecosystem, but they're also great for the economy, for the local economy. So we need to understand that we need to change the way we have been producing or living from natural resources. Instead of killing nature, we better start coming up with different economic activities that are non-lethal. Remember, we killed the whales not that long ago, and now we are seeing more and more communities and people living from whale watching, which is a very, very good way of living from nature without affecting it, as long as it's well done. Of course, tourism can also affect nature if it's not well done. But I encourage countries like not only Dominica, but Barbados and many other countries that have these amazing natural treasures to protect them and come up with economies that are consistent with that protection.
And just to add to that, I think, what Alex is saying is so critical. This question was specific about Dominica, but this does apply to other islands. But all that to say, part of the setting up of the sperm whale reserve is also ensuring that the local economy is supported in that manner, right? This is incredibly important source of revenue. And as Alex mentioned, if it's set up in the right way, it is done in a non-invasive manner. So it's really amazing, I think, to look at how can, of course, reserves look different island to island, country to country, region to region, as Alex mentioned, but how can things like MPAs and just species protection overall serve all of these purposes at once, with the whole goal to remember that we are actually nature ourselves and part of nature, and we're not separate.
Thank you. I'm monitoring some of the channels where the questions are coming in. There is one question, and I also want to just, Kent, please, maybe Graziella, can you also put Kent Thomas in the screen with us, since he's part of the panel? And the other question that came in is, what has been the response collaboration with the private sector in the Caribbean in the marine conservation agenda? For example, the cruise lines, or the public-private partnerships, but the role of the private sector. Is there any collaboration, especially in the Caribbean area? Anyone who would like to answer this question? Kent, would you like to answer maybe partnership? I mean, you were talking also when you made your presentation about communities living in coastal areas, and I'm wondering, even in your experience, if there is any type of partnership with the private sector that can mitigate the impact of climate change and strengthen resilience.
That one would not be my area, sorry.
I'm maybe Alex, I might ask you. I mean, is the National Geographic Society partnering with the private sector in some places for marine protected areas? Can we look at the private sector as an ally and a partner?
Well, yes, but it depends. The private sector is a very broad category, and we definitely work with partners. Like, for instance, in Argentina, we work with whale watchers. They're an amazing group of people that have been doing whale watching for 40 years. They invented some of the rules that today are universally accepted for whale watching. They're wonderful. And for us, it's an example of how protecting nature can also be good for people and for the economy. We definitely don't partner with big fishing industries that are basically depleting the ocean, but we do listen a lot. I mean, we don't think that we have necessarily the truth and solution to everything. We do need to understand that solutions have to be realistic, and we take everybody's points of view, and we try to make or push for solutions that are acceptable. I think that marine reserves need some kind of broad acceptance and respect if we want them to be successful. Otherwise, they wouldn't work. And that goes to the private sector too. But what we have done mostly has been developing studies that can show that protecting the ocean doesn't mean that the fishing industry would be hurt in any way. One big example was in Mexico, when we worked with our Mexican partners to create the Revillagigedo Islands Marine Reserve, which is the largest in North America, 150,000 square kilometers, completely no take. And the fishing industry was very reluctant, it heavily opposed to the reserve, because they thought they would not be able to fish tuna anymore, and they would be definitely experiencing a loss. But 5 years later, our studies that we did with our friend Octavio Aburto, he's a wonderful Mexican scientist, proved that the tuna fishing industry was not hurt at all, and even experienced benefits. So that's why I'm saying that while we understand that people live from fishing, our job has been to prove that by creating reserves, people will be able to fish more and not less outside the limits of a marine reserve. And that's something that we need to take into the equation. This is good for biodiversity, but it's also great for the ocean economy, the blue economy.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for that. I know we're almost at time. We have a few minutes left. And one thing we haven't really touched upon very much, except for food security, and I think one of there was the blue food, but is the issue, the connection between ocean health and healthy marine ecosystem and human health. That aspect of connection between animal health, environmental health, and human health, the interconnection, but especially how does ocean health and marine ecosystem health impact our health as humans? Does someone want to take that and maybe just give us a little summary?
I'll have a shot at that, Bea. Coming from the university, I mean, these connections are really important, and my colleagues certainly have highlighted quite a lot of them. What we are finding is that people are becoming more aware of the importance of the ecosystem services and the environment to their human well-being. It may be seen as a little bit anthropocentric, human-centered, but it's the reality. And one of the things in terms of the university that we're encouraging is not only, as colleagues said, bringing in the youth, the support in terms of scholarships and so forth, bringing in the private sector, who have actually been increasing their corporate social responsibility. But let us not overlook citizen science. In the case of sargassum, it is people who reside on coasts and watch the sea every day who are providing invaluable information on the environmental changes that we're seeing due to human intervention and due to climate and all the other factors. So I think that together, the projects with National Geographic, with CETi, we're doing at UWI, in terms of enhancing the contribution of citizen science to dealing with our environment for mutual benefit. And part of that is making sure that data and information are more widely shared. So that's why we're grateful for opportunities like this, and would certainly encourage more open data. And by that, I mean having data online in a fashion that people can get at it, because everyone likes a search. And to get those data that are meaningful at the household level and the individual level, and you don't have to read thick technical reports to understand how they relate to your everyday life, that's really important. So let's bring the private sector in, as suggested. Let's bring the citizens in, and let us have a little bit more collaboration all around to contribute to human and planetary health.
Excellent points, Patrick. Thank you so much for these final points. And perhaps you can also help us and all the panelists and Alex as well to share the One Health Toolkit. There will be links in the toolkit with the different chapters that also are linked to these videos. So it's a very interactive toolkit that helps, again, share these conversations with different information providers so that there is a better awareness on the intersection of the intersectionality of all these disciplines and sectors, which is so central and essential for One Health. So I want to thank again the Clara Lionel Foundation for supporting this project and today's event. And I want to thank the speakers for their time today and for sharing their wisdom. And thank you for your service, I'd like to say, for what you do for our planet, for our environment, for our oceans. And I hope that next time we meet, there will be a lot more marine protected areas around the world. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.